And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook on this Saturday, May 17th, 2025. And this outlook is for Sunday and Monday. Starting out, though, this later Saturday morning, we have a weak area of low pressure over the northwestern Gulf. That's just going to fade out, but it will keep a few areas of rain showers along the Kenai coast, lower Cook Inlet, down across areas of the eastern part of Kodiak Island into Sunday morning. We find a little drier weather, at least for this Saturday afternoon into Sunday morning across the Panhandle. We will be watching another low come up out of the North Pacific. It's heading kind of toward and just south of Haida, but it will spread some more rain back up into the southern Panhandle, especially as we get into Sunday night. On Monday, we find IFR conditions continuing along areas of the Arctic coast and North Slope, as well as down through the Chukchi Sea, Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue, Norton Sounds, lower Yukon Delta, and then a lot of IFR conditions out across the Aleutian chain, especially central and western Aleutians. And overall, this pattern is we have weak low pressure trough across the central interior back into northwest Canada. So that'll be a focus with the daytime heating of some scattered showers and isolated even thunder showers. There could be an isolated flash of lightning, rumble of thunder up through areas in the hills and mountains there northeast of Fairbanks, up the Tanana Valley toward the Alcan border as we go through Sunday afternoon and early evening. Back along the Arctic coast, North Slope, still IFR conditions there. There could be some light snow, especially along sections of the central North Slope, and then back here through the northern Bering, St. Lawrence, down through St. Matthew, St. Paul, IFR, as well as the western half of the Aleutians Sunday afternoon. Into Monday morning, we find IFR conditions become a little more widespread along the Brooks Range, North Slope, Arctic coast, down into Kotzebue Sound and the northern half of the Seward Peninsula. And then a broad area of IFR conditions, northern central Bering, including St. Lawrence, St. Matthew, Nunavik Island, and St. Paul down to the north side of the Alaska Peninsula toward Cold Bay. And then you see hints of IFR conditions with the lower cloud ceilings and the rain that is expanding northeastward from the low down here in the North Pacific. And then Monday afternoon, we find that there may be some rain brush the southern part of the Panhandle, with IFR conditions there off the coast and south and west of Haida. With the daytime heating, there could be an isolated flash of lightning, rumble of thunder, Yukon Flats down through the 40-mile gold country, upper half of the Tanana Valley, eastern Alaska range. IFR conditions still lingering there, Beaufort Sea coast between Utqiagvik and Demarcation Bay, and then down along the central spine of the Brooks Range. Also, we still have some IFR conditions from just south of the Bering Strait through St. Lawrence Island, Nunavik Island, back toward the Pribilovs at St. Paul, and then finally way out there in the western Aleutians at Shemya and Attu. Now, pass conditions Sunday, generally we're looking Anaktuvik and Adigan passes, VFR conditions early becoming MVFR. And then as we drop down to the west arm of the Alaska Range, Lake Clark and Merrill, MVFR conditions expected throughout Sunday. Same thing for Rainy Pass. Rounding up through Windy Pass, also MVFR conditions will likely be the general situation there. And then as we come east, Isabel may be just kind of between some of the lower cloud cover in that, where VFR conditions, but there could be some cumulus buildups with scattered showers or an isolated thunder shower north of the north entrance there as you go up through the middle and upper Tanana Valley. Same thing, Mentasta Pass. MVFR early becoming VFR, but there could be some cumulus buildups in and around the mountains, and especially there up through the upper half of the Tanana Valley. And then Tanita Pass, generally MVFR conditions expected on Sunday. And Portage Pass, generally MVFR through the pass and out toward Prince William Sound, but the west entrance, west end there, looking VFR. And then for Sunday at Chilkoot and White in the far northern Panhandle, MVFR conditions early Sunday giving way to VFR. Now the freezing levels at the surface, we have the freezing line running out here through the northern portion of the Bering to near just north of St. Paul, coming on shore with generally above freezing temperatures expected along the especially middle into near upper Yukon Valley toward Tanana and Fairbanks. And there is a bump in the freezing levels aloft as we go eastward into northwest Canada. We find freezing levels rise to 6,000 feet aloft. And then notice the freezing levels also coming up south of the Gulf in the North Pacific, 4,000 and 6,000 feet ahead of that low pressure that's going to take a track northeastward toward Haida Gwaii as we get to later Sunday and on Monday. So Sunday, later morning, afternoon, there is the potential for some isolated to maybe some considerable moderate icing along the spine of the Brooks Range into west central north slope above 4,000 feet. We find an area of scattered showers here in the interior, maybe above 6,000 feet, parts of the Alaska Range, and they're just northward, and then hints of that coming up from the south above 8,000 feet. They're just west and southwest of Haida Gwaii, and then there's another low pressure and frontal system that will be sliding southeastward across the Aleutians that could have ahead of it some icing above 8,000 feet way out in the southwest portion of the Bering Sea, and then south of the central Aleutians above 10,000 feet. Now, upper level wind fields, not especially strong over the mainland. There's a little bit of a trough here over the west coast and western interior. Most notable, jet core is ahead of the system, coming up out of the North Pacific, 130 knots, but in the North Pacific, well south of Haida Gwaii. And then behind me there is on the backside more of a northerly flow with winds aloft at 95 to 110 knots there out across the far western Aleutians into the North Pacific. Now at 700 millibars or 9,000 feet, you can see the circulation just south of the Gulf in the North Pacific, and there's a stronger wind field to the east-southeast of the circulation out over the North Pacific, well southwest of Vancouver Island and south of Haida Gwaii, upwards of 50 and 65 knots. And then behind me, this northwesterly flow of the far western Aleutians that pops upward to 40 and 50 knots, but well southwest of the Aleutians. And then finally, at 3,000 feet on Sunday, we have a better sense of the lower level circulation. Low pressure there, still just south of the Gulf. And around that, there is a band of stronger winds just off of Haida Gwaii that could be as high as 40 to 50 knots. And then there is a little area of enhanced wind coming off the Lisbon Peninsula down toward the east side of the Bering Strait in eastern Russia, somewhere on the order of 35 to near 40 knots there. So there is a chance of a little bit of isolated moderate turbulence off the Lisbon Peninsula and especially on the Russian side of the Bering Strait, surface to 4,000 feet. And then with that circulation coming northeastward, it's going to brush just outside of the southwest portion of the Panhandle, Prince of Wales Island, down toward Haida Gwaii. Haida Gwaii area could see some isolated to considerable moderate turbulence Sunday afternoon, evening, surface to 4,000 or 6,000 feet.